Yep, we're getting going here. We're going to be talking about the presidential election coming up in just a few days. Maybe we'll talk about the fair tax. We've been meaning to talk about that for like 3 weeks now. On episode 267 of the In the Tank podcast. As always, I'm your host, Donald Kendal. Joining me today, I've got Justin Haskins, editorial director at the Heartland Institute. How are you, good sir?
I'm doing well. I'm doing very well. I just spent the weekend in Tennessee, in a remote part of Tennessee, which was awesome. Beautiful place. Never been to Tennessee before, but it was gorgeous. Lots of Trump flags, Trump signs all over the place. So it was nice. It was a little disheartening when I had to come back home and see all of that garbage, liberal stuff everywhere as I drive around town. But it was nice to be in real America for a while and not in this socialist hellscape that I live in.
My wife comes home the other day and she's like, "Do you see next door?" I'm like, "What?" She's like, "Go look over there." So I peek my head out and there's a Trump flag flying out there. And then as I'm looking, the guy comes out to like adjust it. And I'm like, "Hey man, hey." And he like looks over at me like cautiously. I'm like, "Awesome flag." And he's like, "Oh, great. Where's yours?" I'm like, "I should get one." Also joining us, I got Isaac Orr, research fellow at the Center of the American Experiment, back in the saddle. What's up, sir?
Not a whole lot. I'm just sad that Justin must have brokered a peace accord with the whales because his hat does not have a whaler theme to it today.
It is a nautical theme.
Yeah,
it's a nautical theme, but it's not like a "Hey whale, I've just extracted your whale oil from my lamp."
That's true. Then maybe I'll do that if Joe Biden wins. That's the plan. Yeah, I think that's the plan. We go back to whale oil.
Jim Lakely, VP of the Heartland Institute. How are you, good sir?
I'm doing fine. Here with Tiny Trump. You know, it's like the election. Again? No, I haven't replaced his batteries recently, but he is fighting. He's fighting for you. You know, he's fighting the media. Actually, last night I saw there's a movie on Amazon. I can't believe actually Amazon is running it, called "The Plot Against the President." It's based on a book that outlines Gavin Newsom, the then chairman, the Republican chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, and his slow uncovering of the plot against the president, the fake news, the fake ginned up Russia conspiracy that almost took him out. It's bracing viewing, actually, and if you had followed the story at all, you start to feel a slow burn as you realize that the deep state is real and that it pulled out all the stops to take down the president of the United States for something he didn't do, and the whole thing was cooked up. And if you don't know anything about that, you really should watch The Plot Against the President on Amazon before they take it down.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out. I know that I think Dinesh D'Souza has like a new movie that he's trying to get on Amazon, and they're like, "Oh, there's a backlog. We can't get it on until after the election. Sorry." Yeah. So yeah, it doesn't. It does surprise me that movie is on there. All right, gentlemen, I do want to get to our presidential predictions. The election is on Tuesday. Who's voted so far? Isaac, you voted? Early voted? Nice. Justin, no?
No way am I early voting.
Jim Lakely, I know that you call people...
Why not avoid the line? I wish I could Amazon Prime my ballot to the location. I guess
if you Amazon Prime, you're first of all, that doesn't even make sense because Amazon Prime doesn't ship things to other people from you. You
Not
get
yet.
things from Amazon. Second
That's
of all,
the next stage.
If Amazon was in charge of delivering ballots, none of those ballots are going to get delivered. Not from people who work at conservative think tanks.
You trust the post office to be better?
No.
That's why
I don't trust any of them.
That's why I want to
go. That's why I want to go in person. No, I rest my case. That's why I'm going in person.
All right, I'm going to rest my case. I voted early. I went yesterday.
That's right.
There was 15 people in line in front of me.
Because you're a true American.
It took me like 25 minutes. Piece of cake, man. I know Jim has called people anti-American for wanting to vote early.
No, I said real Americans vote on election day. That's what I said. I'm going to vote on election day like a real American. Look,
you're a fake American.
part of the reason I do it is not just to make sure that my vote is secure, but because election day is supposed to be a kind of a civic sacrament. It's like going to church.
No,
you should go on election day and vote.
Don't compare anything with government to church.
Yeah, don't do that. I mean, like both.
I meant it's a patriotic civic act. All right, to vote on election day. That's the way.
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Because like I have half a mind to say don't encourage them.
Oh yeah, I might be a little. I'm going to be a little busy on Tuesday. I don't know. Maybe I'll vote early. Maybe I'll mail something in. Come on, man. Man up and go vote on election day.
Come on, man.
I think that it's I wouldn't call it religious right or anything like that, but I would say that I do see it sort of like the Super Bowl, and so it's it's a huge event that millions of people take part in, and even if I don't, and so I think it's kind of weird to go to some local county election office like 3 days before the event with 10 other people and fill out paperwork like I'm going to the DMV or something.
Oh, paperwork.
I want it to feel a little more like it's part of some big event, not like it's some stupid bureaucratic process that I'm going through.
The last time I voted on like the election day was in the primaries of the 2016 election, and I had to stand in line for like 2.5 hours. I'm not doing that anymore.
That's funny because I literally have never stood in line.
And this is a suburb. Think ever. This is a suburb. The polling place was at like a church or something like that. And I had to go all the way down the hall, like around the corner. I stood there forever. And this is like, obviously pre-COVID where everyone was just bunched up in line. Now it's like there's going to be like loops of lines around the place that you're polling at. I don't even know how they're going to do it. You're going to have to be 6 feet apart.
Still worth it. I mean, yeah, I'm with Justin. I think the longest line I've ever stood in was like 3 people.
Yeah, me too.
Well, me and Isaac are on team left side of the screen, and we think team right side of the screen sucks. So stick it.
That's
classic lefties.
Yep. Stay over there. Can we make the bar in the middle a little thicker? I'm a little worried about you border jumping on it. There we go. Excellent.
Oh, that is why we have a producer. Yeah, you just made it.
Andy just saved his job. He didn't
for
know
another
it,
year. Yeah,
yep. We were planning on firing Andy 2 weeks from now, and Andy just saved his job. Good work, pal.
Yeah.
Build the wall. Andy. Build the wall. It works.
All right. Let's. So I do want to get to our actual predictions when it comes to that. But before we do, I want to talk about some of these. We got a holiday coming up. We got Halloween is when people listen to this will be tomorrow. Thanksgiving is only a month away. And Jim sent around an email a few days ago that contained the California's health department's guidance for private gatherings. So, Jim, I mean, you could probably walk us through this because along with the actual copy and pasted elements of it, you had your commentary already spliced in. So do you want to walk us through some of these more ridiculous, what we're supposed to do on Thanksgiving as a family, apparently?
Yeah, well, this is in California, and like all bad ideas, they start in California and they tend to spread. And as I've mentioned before on this podcast, I fled California in 2010 and I've never regretted a day of it. But Governor Gavin Newsom. I put them together sometimes by accident. I apologize for that. But he released these new Thanksgiving rules for California. These are the experts. You see, they decree these new rules to keep us safe, right? Now, Thanksgiving is my favorite holiday. I love it. I love the turkey. I love the cooking. I love the smell of the house. I love seeing family. It is, in my mind, better than Christmas. I just love it. But they say that here are some of the highlights from it. So gatherings that include more than 3 households are prohibited. This includes everyone present, including the hosts and the guests. So you're hosting Thanksgiving. So you're one right off the bat. So I don't know why they didn't just put no more than 2 other households are included because they can't write. But basically only 2 other households can come. So if you have 3 sisters or, more than 2 siblings, one of them's just not going to make it this year. Too bad.
You have to rock, paper, scissors to see who can come to Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's right. And then, of course, if you invite your elderly mother who lives elsewhere so now you only get 1 sibling. And so I don't know what kind of Thanksgiving that's going to be. Maybe some people it's better to have fewer family, but most people want lots of family at Thanksgiving. And I'm sure actually that if they have more than 2 kids or 3 kids, they probably need to leave a couple of them at home, just to be sure. Also another guideline here. And I wonder if they're actually going to send out the police to enforce this.
Well, that was going to be one of my questions. So we'll save that to the end though.
We'll save that to the end. So, here's another rule that the host should collect names of all attendees and contact information in case contact tracing is needed later. Screw off. I'm not giving the government the names and address and phone number of every person in my family that came for Thanksgiving dinner. You can go to hell. No way.
Yeah,
that is ridiculous.
You walk in, you have to like collect their social security number.
That's right. just in case the commissar drops by for a visit and needs to know all this information, they can just go screw off for that. Here's another one. All gatherings must be held outside, which is usually not a big deal in California. But all gatherings must be held outside. Attendees may go inside to use the restrooms as long as the restrooms are frequently sanitized. Now, suppose you don't sanitize the bathroom frequently enough for Governor Newsom, whatever that means. I guess your guests could just do their business outside, which, as we see from the streets of California, is an acceptable practice in California.
Well, those are very infrequently sanitized. I was in San Francisco last year, and that was
right.
Watch where you step.
That's right. So doing your business outside. Boom! It's awesome in California.
Yeah.
Here's another one. For any gatherings permitted under this guidance, the space must be large enough so that everyone at a gathering can maintain at least 6 foot physical distance from others, not including the people in their own household, at all times.
How does that even work?
It has to be set up like a Biden rally where you have circles, and you can transfer from circle to circle, and only one person in a circle at a time.
So you can even be like at a dinner table. I mean, does people have like 24-foot dinner tables and they're all like spaced out?
No, I guess you sit in the grass and try not to sit in anybody's outdoor restroom business while you do it, and have your Thanksgiving dinner that way. And then maybe you just text each other instead of talking. That's great. Another guideline rule. Everyone at a gathering should frequently wash their hands with soap and water or use hand sanitizer if soap and water are not available. A place to wash hands or use hand sanitizer must be available for participants to use. So now you got to set up your house if you want your family over for Thanksgiving, like you're running the Home Depot, where there's like, a hand sanitizer like every 40 feet or something like that. And this is for your own family. This is, like there isn't a place to wash your hands in most people's homes. I mean, this is ridiculous. And then shared items should not be used during a gathering. So like forget about passing the bowl of mashed potatoes.
Oh no, you're
and
passing
the plate of
poison.
meat around. Forget it. Oh
you're
yeah,
passing disease around if you do
passing
that.
disease around. It's not delicious. And so as much as possible, all food and beverages at these outdoor gatherings, not inside, must be in single serve disposable containers. So your wonderful family enriching Thanksgiving dinner has all the intimacy and fun of Chinese takeout, because everybody's going to have these styrofoam things where all the meal's already in there, because you can't touch anybody and you can't touch anything and you can't share anything if you've touched anything. Despite the fact the CDC says that the coronavirus does not get transferred by touch.
Go ahead, Isaac.
Let you speak ill of Chinese takeout. Resume.
Chinese takeout has its place, but not on Thanksgiving, man.
Isaac eats Chinese food for Thanksgiving anyway, so this is a very convenient rule for him. This just works itself
Peking
out.
duck.
He lives
keep it short.
Life.
Gatherings should be no more than 2 hours.
Right.
The longer the duration, the risk of transmission increases. So it should be like an hour. You should just run in, sign in so that you put your name and social security number, wash your hands, and then just shove food down your mouth and then leave.
Actually shove food down your mouth in between having your mask on your face. So you would have the mask on and while you're chewing, and then you would take it off and have another spoonful of food. Then you put the mask back on and chew again. I mean, for crying out loud, they really think somebody in the government of California didn't just spend a lot of time thinking all these things through. They wrote it down. They shared it with other bureaucrats in the state of California. And they thought, you know what? The people are going to love us. We're trying to take care of them and keep them safe. Let's put this out there as much as we can.
They even have rules.
This is insane. The people who run the state of California have lost their minds.
They even have rules on singing, chanting, and shouting at outdoor gatherings. And they talk about how singing should be restricted, or at least like doing it at such a low tone that it's like talking softly or something like that.
Nobody wants their relatives singing at the holidays. Like, never once have I been at Thanksgiving and said, hey, you know what would make this better? Singing.
Yeah. You know what? I think
they're onto something.
Yeah. I kind of like these rules. I kind of like them. I have a new theory. I think that this is not some out of control authoritarian bureaucrat. This is clearly a cry for help.
Yes.
Or a way to escape. You know what? No, this is the answer right here. Whoever wrote these rules hates their family.
Yep.
Yes.
They must have like terrible in-laws or something, right? And they got to spend all this time with these people. And this is like the ultimate get out of jail free card, right?
Yes.
Because you're the one that writes the rules for the state of California. So you got to kick these people out within 2 hours. You can't be the guy who gets caught with the rule maker can't be the one that has, you know, the
point.
chanting family members and you know, the mashed potatoes in the bowl instead of the styrofoam thing. Like, you can't have that. You got to be the one that throws them out, that eats the Chinese food takeout for dinner. Like, you got to be that person. So that's clearly what this is. This is a big, gigantic scam for this one person to get out of having a miserable day with his awful family.
So let's reverse engineer this then.
He probably owns a Chinese takeout place.
Yeah, win-win.
So Gavin Newsom, you know, he every year he's got all of his family come over, and they all have to go to his house, and they all have like this big singing thing, and it's all day long, you know, like everyone uses his bathroom. So he concocted this scenario.
Nobody puts the seat up when they go too. So it's just everywhere.
When you go outside, you don't have to worry about that, I guess. You know, I just want to know what everybody's favorite Thanksgiving carol is.
Yeah, no, good point. Well, this is going to be, you know, obviously the case also when Christmas comes around. So, you know, no 12 Days of Christmas singing anymore. So
see, there's actual songs for Christmas though. Like,
that's true. Jingle bells.
Seems pretty premature for Thanksgiving.
Well, they got to do it now so that, you know, they don't spring it on you. So it's not super obvious. That's what it really is. It's Newsom getting ready for the Christmas celebration. That's what he's trying to do all this.
Well, yet more conditioning to accept, you know, totalitarian, authoritarian rules by our betters. I mean, this is symptomatic of what the problem with COVID so-called mitigation rules have been all along. And that's that it treats every single person like they're they're just a bag of disease that can explode at any moment, you know, when most people are not infected, and the transmission, if you get it and you're under the age of 70, you're going to be fine for the most part. It's in that regard. For anybody under the age of 30, it's no more deadly. In fact, the flu is deadlier to people who are young than the COVID is. But it's just this idea that they think that they can control even your Thanksgiving dinner, what you do in your own home. They think that the COVID gives them the justification and the right to tell you how many people of your family can come over, and not only that, but how exactly and precisely you move about your own home.
Yeah.
If you don't, I mean, it's laughable on one sense, but you know where it comes from is not funny.
So you know, Thanksgiving's still a month away, but Halloween is on Saturday. And there's an article that I had seen on FEE, which is the Foundation for Economic Education, titled "Trick-or-Treating Bans Are the Scariest Part of Halloween in 2020." So it says, Halloween is creepy this year, and it has nothing to do with the costumes and the face paint. Several cities and counties have placed an outright ban on children's trick-or-treating due to COVID-19 fears, while others are strongly urging families to forego the practice. The U.S. Centers of Disease Control and Prevention, CDC, advises individuals and families to spend this Saturday at home alone, mask optional. So, one of these places, Springfield, Massachusetts, the mayor says, "We are dealing with a pandemic here. Why in the hell would we want to put your children and your safety in harm's way? It makes no sense whatsoever." So, I mean, Halloween, it seems a little strange. I mean, you're wearing masks anyways. It's kind of built into the celebration of this. But I started going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here when it comes to Halloween. And this is a travesty. If kids are restricted from going trick-or-treating this year, it is an absolute travesty. And I'll tell you exactly why. So back me up on this, or feel free to interject. But in my opinion, you've got 5 years of prime trick-or-treating. Andy, I'm looking at you too. 5 years of prime trick-or-treating as a kid, from ages like 9 to 13. Because before 9, it's just like you're tagging along with your parents, and you only go a couple of blocks maybe until they want to go home. And then after 13, you're too cool to go trick-or-treating. So
no, really, no trick-or-treating after 10.
10?
Then you're done.
No, you got to go at least through grade school.
No.
7th grade, you're like, all right, maybe I'm too old for this, but I'm still going to go.
You should have a part-time job by the time you're 10.
Isaac comes from a farm, so forgive him. So 5 years of prime trick-or-treating. So Halloween only falls on a Saturday, which is the best day for trick-or-treating, like only once in every like 5 to 10 years. So, obviously like Tuesday,
5 to 10 years, 5 to 10 years would be 7, except for every 7 years, because there's 7 days in a week, except for leap year when it would pop over.
Exactly. So yeah.
Right.
So if it skips over,
so you figure it out. Yeah, we're just ballparking it here.
Yeah. No. Sometimes it's less. Sometimes it's more. 5 to 7 years. So
all right. Sorry.
Or 5 to 10 years. So so on Tuesday, you got school, and then you got school tomorrow. So that stinks. Yeah. Friday you have school, but you get to stay up late, so that's not bad. Sunday it's like you have school tomorrow, so it's not ideal. So Saturday is really the prime day for it. So I looked back at my prime years of Halloween, and I had a Saturday when I was 9 years old. Never had one again. Okay. The next one, so between 1999 and 2008, so like 10 years right there, no Saturdays. So you could this is a pretty once in a blue moon type of thing here. The next Saturday Halloween isn't until 2026. So if kids are getting screwed out of their Halloween trick-or-treating in 2020, I think that is a travesty. That is an absolute travesty. Andy, back me up.
Backing you up, bro. So
wow.
Anyone?
Travesty, bro.
All right.
Real travesty. No, here's the thing. I think you're right to some extent. I would argue that Halloween is a ridiculous and stupid holiday and shouldn't exist anyway.
Oh my God.
So it doesn't really matter to me. However, I will say this.
That's because Justin grew up in the middle of the woods where he couldn't go trick-or-treating. So he's just jealous of all of his peers.
I went trick-or-treating, and it was a miserable experience every single year because the houses in rural New Hampshire are all a quarter of a mile away from each other. So
exactly.
trick-or-treating, it takes 4 hours in a New England fall.
And you get 12 pieces of candy.
45 degrees. It's nighttime. It's pitch black. We don't have streetlights in rural New Hampshire, folks. So you're walking in the dark. All right. And you get 6 houses out of it, and 2 of them give you freaking toothbrushes. So is it a good holiday? No, it's a stupid holiday.
Oh,
a really stupid holiday.
No,
we shouldn't have it.
Bitter.
But
Justin's
that's
just bitter.
Well, that's probably 35%
How
of it.
dare you?
It's like talk about
you're stealing our
horrifying
dreams.
Kids too. Yeah, but putting that aside for a minute, I think that is true. I don't know if I can, but putting that aside for a minute, I think that Donnie's point is accurate in that ultimately, does anyone really care about how this is impacting everybody's life in every single way, even children and their child? I mean, think about the people. Should we really be surprised? These people want to shut down schools.
Right.
They want to send these kids. They want these kids to be home all the time. They don't want them singing or talking loudly with their friends. They want people home. I mean, it's really tragic how this is impacting just about every single aspect of our lives. And some of it is reasonable and justifiable, but a lot of it is not justifiable or reasonable in any way. And this is just more proof of that. But if they're willing to ruin Thanksgiving, if they're willing to ruin Christmas, which I'm sure they're going to do at some point in the future, if they're willing to ruin children's education in schools, if they're willing to keep kids out of taking the SATs, which impact, their entire future, then why should we be surprised that they're willing to, screw with people on Halloween? Of course they're willing to do that. They're willing to do anything. They're willing to destroy millions of businesses all across the country. So you think they're going to think twice about ruining some kid's Halloween? No, of course not. They don't care.
Send your kids out, put them in masks or whatever. Do whatever you think is safe, but send your kids out, man. They only get a couple of these trick-or-treating experiences. So but we've seen a lot of doctors and surgeons just so they can kind of build in that mask into the costume, but whatever, it's fine. Who cares?
No, every child is dressed up as a super spreader. See, that's what everybody has the same costume on. They're all super spreaders.
Someone's going to be dressed up as Trump.
It is kind of funny that they are so concerned about spreading COVID on a holiday that most people wear masks on anyway. I mean, isn't that kind of a weird thing we get worried about? Like, they're all wearing masks. That's part of the holiday. And so I don't know. And then you could say, well, yeah, but those masks, you know, they're not going to stop COVID. Well, neither are the other masks that we're wearing. So it's all kind of the same.
You're talking my Scream mask, you know, the ghost face mask isn't going to stop
that mask probably has a better chance of stopping COVID than the masks that you normally wear when you go to the store.
All right, let's move on. We got to get to our predictions here. So Scarier Than Halloween is a couple of days after that, which will be election time 2020.
Look at that segue. That's amazing. Can we just stop and appreciate that segue? That's a really good segue.
Moment of silence for that segue.
So 4 years ago, we did an office pool where we all did predictions and guessed based on the Electoral College, you know, who was going to win, Hillary, Trump, and who was closest in their prediction. Justin likes to remind everybody that he won. I think he beat me by like 2 electoral points. I was second place. I think Jim was last place, if I recall correctly.
I was.
So, Jim, you were like, all right, let's do this again this time around. So why don't you kind of take us through how you were trying to set up this office pool?
Yeah, well, we expect to actually have about 30 people participating, which is kind of cool. But you have to obviously pick who wins, Trump or Biden. You have to select you have to guess the Electoral College count. You have to pick the winner of these swing states of Florida, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Nevada, and Arizona. You have to pick who's going to have control of the House, who's going to have control of the Senate, and how many seats they're going to have in each one of those chambers. And then there it is there. Yeah. And then then you get the Arizona Senate race between McSally and Kelly, the Maine race between Gideon and Collins, and the North Carolina Senate race, that's just for you, Justin, between Tillis and sneaky Cal Cunningham. So,
all right. So I think the best way to do this is to pull up one of those like Politico where you click in the different states, the race to 270.com maps. And I think we should just kind of plot them out. So if everyone's got their predictions, we can start doing that. So Andy, scroll down a little bit, and then on the bottom right there's like the map library, and it says 2020 consensus. Click on that. Yep, click on that, and then go to the 2016 final results or something. All right, so this is what it ended up with Trump versus Clinton. So Clinton got 232, and Trump got 305. So I'm going to do my predictions first because it's pretty simple. Andy, just go ahead and click on Minnesota there.
Make that red.
Minnesota's north.
Jesus.
God.
Oh, boy.
Click on that.
Oh, man.
Click it until it's red. All right, boom. There's my prediction.
You're in Illinois. You should know where Minnesota is.
That's my prediction. 222, 316. I think it's going to be exactly the same, except for Minnesota's going to switch.
Look at this map. Okay. All right.
That's it. That's my map. It's nice and simple. I have everything the same. Even the Maine one, I'll keep that the same. The Nebraska one, have it all go to Trump, and that'll be that's my thing. Trump 316, just like Stone Cold.
For Trump so loved the world.
So that's it. So mark it down, Jim. Mark it down. So in the races that you have it specifically put out, obviously I have Trump winning. Electoral College 316 to him. I have Trump winning Florida. I have him winning Pennsylvania, Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin. The only one that I have here that you had us choose specifically is Nevada going to Biden.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Arizona going to Trump. I think the House still ends up GOP. I think the Senate ends up GOP, and everything.
So you think the Republicans take the House too, huh?
Sure. Yeah, I think the polls are way off, folks. Right. Bad polls, they're way off. It's all going to trend towards Trump.
The polls are very naughty, folks.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. Does anyone else want to offer their suggestion before we get into some of the reasonings why, or should I give some of my reasonings?
No, you go ahead. You tell us why.
Okay, so up until this point, and I think even on this podcast, Justin's been like, "Oh, but the polls really show Trump's down like 10 points." Justin will say, and then and he's like, and I say, "Well, the polls were really bad last time around." He's like, "Yeah, but they weren't this bad, could they be 5 points off last time? But could they be 10 points off this time?" To that, I say yes. I say absolutely. I think the silent majority is even larger than it was last time around. I think this day and age, especially with all the violence on the streets and the absolute vitriol that is in our political system right now, I think that if a poll person calls you up and says, "Hey, are you voting for Trump?" A complete stranger calling people up, asking if they're voting for Trump, I think they're going to say, no, who is this? No, I'm not. So I think the polls are way off. So that's my biggest reasoning. Because in 2016, when I made my predictions, I just shifted all the polls like down 5 points. And it was like, all right, this state swings back to Trump. This one swings back to Trump. This one swings back to Trump. That's how I made my predictions this time. Basically did the same time this time, except for just shifted them even more. That's my reasoning. Anyone?
Very interesting.
Anyone?
Why not New Mexico, Donnie?
I'm curious. I'm curious to see what other people think before I reveal my predictions. And as the defending champ, I should have the.
Yeah, you should win
by the way, can I just take a second and just say that not only did I win the 2016 pool that we had, I won the primary pool that we had most recently, and I won the Game of Thrones death pool. So I am absolutely owning all of you. So let me just first bring that up. And
we should really
as defending champion. Well, exactly. Like you guys should listen to me. But I want to know what Jim and Isaac think, actually. And Isaac in particular, because Jim is pointless, and also because Isaac lives in
Shots
Minnesota.
Fired.
So I'm curious for that reason as well. And he's a Midwest guy. Jim is kind of a Midwest guy. I don't know if Pittsburgh is technically in the Midwest.
It's not the Midwest.
Pennsylvania
it's pretty close.
No, if you're in the Eastern time zone, you can't be in the Midwest.
Well, Ohio, I mean, I would say that no one would say Ohio is not in the Midwest.
I would, right here.
Well, that's insane. I mean, Ohio is like quintessential Midwest. Is Ohio.
Come on.
And Pittsburgh's pretty close to the Ohio border, so I'm not sure. But I want to know what Isaac, what do you think? I want to know what you think.
Are we pulling up this map?
Yeah, I can do that.
Pull up the map. There, Andy. All right, so that's mine. Do you want to base it off of this? What do you want?
Yeah, I don't care. All right, so Andy, what I want you to do is I want you to find Pennsylvania. Do you know where that is?
It's in the top. It's in the keep going, right up there. There it is. Nope, down a little bit. There we go.
Perfect. And do you know where Michigan is?
Michigan's the one that. Yeah, there you go. Looks like it'll go up a little bit.
So there's a state that's directly north of Illinois called Wisconsin.
Yeah,
make that blue.
No. There we go.
And Minnesota.
And Minnesota staying blue. Okay.
And I think he's going to win that one in Nebraska. So
that's on the bottom right there, right above the.
Nope.
But yeah,
the little
to the
things
right
on the,
there.
I said
keep
280.
going right, Andy.
Yeah, like above the map reset
split
button,
votes
all the way on the
says,
right.
Yeah, it says split votes, Andy. Keep going to the right.
There we go. Down a little bit. All right. Well, whatever. We get the point. Okay. So Isaac's got Biden winning 278 to 260.
279 because he wants one more point, but Andy can't figure out how to work the map. So
my map says 280. I don't know where the other one is. Maybe I'm assuming that one doesn't go for him in Maine, but like I don't really care. It's like basically the same thing.
Yeah, you have 280. That's right.
I'm gonna take a screenshot of this.
Yeah, the NE, Andy, right next to the NE. Make one of those ones. No, not the 2. Yeah, there you go.
God, it's like we have a child.
Yeah, you lost your job now again. You gained it with that whole like border thing, but now you lost.
That was shaky performance. The Mitch Trubisky of producers.
So Isaac says 279, 259. Biden wins. So why? And he's got Arizona going red, but he has all the upper Midwest, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan all going blue. And he has Pennsylvania going blue as well. He has North Carolina and Florida going red. So so basically this whole thing hinges for you on Pennsylvania, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, all going blue. So why do you think that? It's important to note, by the way, Isaac is from Wisconsin, lives in Minnesota. So he does, I think have a feel for the pulse of these states, at least somewhat.
It means I know everything about these two states. I don't know. I just don't have a great feeling. That's all it is.
It's just a feeling.
So, and I will say I'm more optimistic, but when there's $10 on the line and I got to win this pool, I'm going to hedge with what some of the polls are saying. So hopefully I'm wrong, but like I want to get money as well. And
Did you were in the pool the last time, right?
No, I wasn't.
You weren't in the pool the last time?
No, I wasn't allowed. Wait, I don't know what was happening.
It's 2016.
Yeah, I was still with Heartland then. I wasn't.
Yeah.
You
didn't care. You just didn't care. You were mailing it in back then.
For sure.
Okay. All right. So Isaac's got it 279, and it's mostly the upper Midwest he's got flipped. Whereas Donnie, you had all of those states that he has blue here. You had them red, right?
Well, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania.
So you had Minnesota too.
Yep.
And you had but you also flipped Arizona to red too, right?
No, that was the same as 2016. I left that.
He won Arizona.
He did win Arizona. So you okay, sorry. So you didn't flip it. You had it at red.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
All right. Go on. Sorry. All right. So Jim, you want to
let's do Jim. Do you want to reset it to anything or do you want to go based off this?
You can just base it off this. So actually I have Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania all going red.
All right, so flip all those back.
He's like Vanna White, only not as pretty.
Yeah. Don't ask him the state capitals either, though. We could be here all day. Actually turn New Hampshire red.
Oh, New Hampshire. It's up there. Yeah, it's next to the one that looks like a V.
Very interesting.
Yeah, that gets us to 319. Everything else is the same.
Okay.
That's where I think it's gonna come out. I think the idea that he's going to lose Pennsylvania, that Trump is going to lose Pennsylvania after what Joe Biden has said about fracking, he's lies about it, but the idea that he's going to end it, all of this stuff. Fracking is a huge problem for Biden, and Pennsylvania. It would be like campaigning in Pittsburgh in the 1960s, saying we're going to end that dirty steel industry. And because it's dirty, and we'll train you for other jobs. Now, as in 20 years, as it turned out, of course, the steel industry in Pittsburgh did start to decline in the 60s, and it turned out that way. But it wasn't done on purpose. And Joe Biden is basically saying that I'm going to destroy the number one industry in your state on purpose.
So why not New Mexico?
Well, I think this is my conservative map. I actually think New Mexico is in play. That could happen. I mean, some people are saying Colorado is in play. I think Colorado's long gone to the left at that point. I think it might be closer than a lot of people anticipate. But I'm with Donnie. I think the polls have been very, very wrong. They're actually going to be. They were wrong obviously last time, and I think they're going to be more wrong this time around because I don't think our polling. I don't think our polling companies, the media polling companies, have learned anything. I don't think they've adjusted the way they do these things in sufficient ways. Trafalgar, the polling company, we've talked about them. They were pretty much the only national polling company to get it right in 2016. And they say that Pennsylvania is going Trump's way. They say Florida is already in the bag, basically. Ohio, the idea, the media. What was it today? He's up? It was at 17 points in Michigan. Wisconsin. Biden is up 17 points in Wisconsin, or maybe he's 17 points nationally was another poll today. The idea that Joe Biden is going to be like Ronald Reagan versus Walter Mondale in 1984, it couldn't be more absurd. I think it's going to be close and it could roll either way. But, look, all the momentum right now is on Trump's side. And you also have to give it the eye test. I mean, Donald Trump is helicoptering into 20,000 people in Arizona, while Joe Biden is slowly crawling down a set of stairs to 20 people that are sitting in circles on a lawn somewhere.
Right.
I mean, there's more people at at Sizzler on a Friday night than there are people that are at his at his events.
Yeah.
I just can't. I mean, it just doesn't pass the eye test. The enthusiasm for Trump, just like in 2016, is a lot higher than it was for Hillary. And Biden has no enthusiasm. He's barely campaigning. He's counting on the media to pull him over the finish line. The media failed to pull Hillary over the finish line. They're going to fail to pull Biden over the finish line.
All right. So the grand finale here, the reigning champion on pretty much all of the polls that we do. Let's go to Justin Haskins. And as you're getting set up there, I will give a little bit of an update on the first story that we were talking about with these holiday lockdowns. There's an article from The Sun in the UK that is headlined, "Cops will enter homes and break up Christmas family gatherings if they break lockdown rules," warns police chief. So yeah, let's see if that happens around here.
Yeah. By the way, that's another factor working in Trump's favor. There's like COVID fatigue.
Right. All right, bring up that map, Justin. Let's have it. You wanna reset that?
All right. So here's before we switch these states over here, I just want to say my analysis is based entirely on this. In the last election, I believe that the polls were, generally speaking, giving Clinton about 4 or 5, I would say between 3 and 5 points more than what she should get. Okay. So percentage points. So if Trump was down by, say, 4 points, then I would say that, generally speaking, in the polls on election day, my prediction was Trump would win just barely. It would be almost a tie. Or would win within a point, or say win for Trump. So I believed that the polls were off between 3 and 5, maybe 6 points, depending on the thing. Now that turned out to be extremely accurate. That's essentially what ended up happening, and that's why I believe that Trump was going to win, just barely win. The only state that I did not get right, I think, last time was Wisconsin. I did predict Michigan would flip. I thought Wisconsin would just barely be a loss. Now, up to this point in time, what I've done is I've looked at the polls and I've said, well, as Donnie pointed out earlier, the polls have generally showed Trump losing by, instead of 4 or 5 points, more like 8 or 9 points. In some of these states, he's down by 10 points in the polls. And so I looked at that and I said, I can buy that the polls are off by 4 or 5 points, but I have a really hard time believing the polls are off by 8 points or 9 points or something like that. However, up till very recently, the polls have been off by, like I said, 8 or 9 points, but now the polls have started to tighten. And in many of these state-based polls, they're now showing Trump losing by 3, 4, 5 points. Some polls have him actually tied or winning. And so my analysis has changed pretty dramatically.
This is just a whole bunch of preamble malarkey. Get to it.
So my prediction
is the main course.
I have to say this because it seems to contradict what I've been saying prior to this point in time. So I have to explain why I'm going to say something now that is different than what I've said in the past.
This is Fox News caliber analysis.
It is Fox News caliber analysis.
That's right.
Exactly
which
right.
is why I don't watch Fox News.
All right.
So my prediction is this. What I want is I want Andy to keep Arizona red. I want to flip Minnesota. Flip it red. I'm going to keep everything else as it is right now, except maybe Nebraska gets 1. But I'm going to say I'm going to go with no. I'm not going to give it to Nebraska, actually. Although I think that there is a real possibility that will happen. But this map, as it stands right here, actually is what I think is going to happen.
Oh man, that's exactly my map. That's exactly what I have.
And the only difference between this and Jim is Jim had New Hampshire flipping red. And the only reason I'm not flipping New Hampshire red, I did actually go to New Hampshire within the past month or so. There were tons and tons and tons of Trump flags everywhere, tons of them. I was in a more rural part of New Hampshire, but there was tons of pro-Trump stuff. And at the time, I actually thought, man, I think New Hampshire might flip. I'm from New Hampshire, and I really thought, this might actually happen. But when you look at the polls, New Hampshire is actually one of the very few states where Trump is doing is actually doing much, much worse than he did last time in the polls. Much, much worse. And because of that, I'm going to say no. The other thing that most people don't know inside baseball about New Hampshire is that New Hampshire has had a massive influx of people move in from out of state. Yep. Most of those people, they tend to think are from Massachusetts, but if you actually look at where they end up moving to, it's along the Vermont border. And so I actually think a lot of far left people from Vermont have moved into New Hampshire. It's been steadily happening over the past 20 years. And it's people who I think were New Yorkers that moved to Vermont a long time ago, can't stand the high taxes and costs. So they move across the border, but they lean left. I don't think that they're going to vote for Trump. So I think New Hampshire stays blue, just barely. But I think that all the other states flip. So Trump is actually going to do better than I think he did last time, because I believe Minnesota is going to flip. And the reason I think Minnesota is going to flip, which is something that I said was a possibility, by the way, probably a year ago, I wrote a whole article about it for Fox News. And the reason I think it's going to flip is because you had the riots in Minneapolis. I think that's going to hurt Biden in the suburbs. And I also think not having Gary Johnson got a massive number of voters in Minnesota last time around. It was like 4% or something like that. 4 or 5% of the vote went to Gary Johnson. That's not going to happen this time around. That's probably going to be like 1% for the Libertarian. A lot of those people are going to go towards Trump. The combination of those two things, plus the polls show that it's within, 3 to 5 points. I think that's going to be the case. And just one last thing, if you look at the Real Clear Politics average of polls, and you look at a lot of these upper Midwest swing states, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan, Trump is actually doing as well or better than he was at this same point in time last election. And so I don't see how this feels better than the last election for Trump. It doesn't feel worse. And so I have a hard time believing that Biden is going to win those states when the polls are actually showing it closer than it was last time, and he actually won those states. So
can I change everything, all the states to Kanye?
You should.
I think he's going to sweep.
Yeah,
make all of those purple.
I don't know a single person in Minnesota who lives in the suburbs who said that the riots have changed their mind, though. Like, to me, that's where my own personal experience is like, okay, of my friend group, like some of them live just down the street from that. And none of them are like, oh, yeah, well, obviously now I'm going to go vote for Trump. Like, to me, that doesn't make sense.
It's all about enthusiasm level.
Well, you know what? But let's put that aside I'll ask a different question to you, Isaac. Isaac, do you know anybody who voted for Trump in Minnesota who's not going to vote for Trump this next time around? Do you feel like the enthusiasm for Trump voters has declined?
Right.
I know some in Wisconsin, not Minnesota. Okay.
So do you believe, there were a ton of people that voted for Gary Johnson in Minnesota. Now, do you think that there's going to be all these people voting for Joe Jorgensen?
Were people voting for Gary Johnson or voting against the other two candidates? That's what the question is.
You're right. No one was voting for Gary Johnson. They were voting. They were voting because they wanted to vote for a conservative. But they wanted the
5% threshold. That's what they wanted.
What they wanted was it was a protest vote against Trump for people who were leaning conservative. That's what it was. But what I'm trying to get at is, that is not the same level of protest vote against Trump. Like, that has gone down. There's just no question about it that it's gone down. So those votes have to go somewhere. So unless you think there's all these libertarians voting for Biden, those votes had to go to Trump, right?
I see
staying home.
I see Jorgensen signs with Republican congressional candidate signs right next to it in my neighborhood. Okay. So I'm just saying.
So you think he'll get about the same? It'll be about the same. Because this is the thing. Trump just barely lost Minnesota last time. It was pretty close.
I think he's losing ground in the suburbs, but gaining grounds in the rural parts.
Oh, he's killing it in the Iron Range, and you know that, up there.
Oh, right.
And see, another thing, so people, you got to remember Jill Stein was on the Green Party ticket last time, and Hillary supporters were blaming her for Hillary losing. When the fact of the matter is, Gary Johnson took more votes away from Trump than Jill Stein did from Hillary.
Right.
So I think, Justin bringing up the Gary Johnson not being there, the Libertarian ticket, basically getting no coverage. I mean, remember how much coverage Gary Johnson and Jill Stein got last time. They were on TV a lot.
Yep.
There was demands that they did.
CNN hour-long interview with Gary Johnson.
Yeah. I couldn't even tell you who the Green Party candidate is now. And I forgot all about Joe Jorgensen.
Hawkins.
So, whatever. Who cares? Doesn't matter what the name is. It's because nobody cares and nobody knows. So it's going to be, that's a great point. The idea that Gary Johnson is really the biggest celebrity libertarian who's ever run for president.
Yeah, I mean that's the point. Is the Gary Johnson got 3.8? He got 112,000 votes in Minnesota last time, and Trump lost by about 44,000. So Gary Johnson got 112,000. Trump lost by 44,000. So those votes have to go. Those libertarian votes have to go somewhere.
Yeah, or they're just
where are they going to go?
Or go home.
Well, they're not, but they're not gonna stay home. I mean, if you're actually going out there voting for Gary Johnson to prove a point, you're not the kind of person that doesn't go out and vote. So who are these people? They're going to vote for Biden now? I mean, it just seems inconceivable unless they all go out and vote for Joe Jorgensen, which I just don't believe. And maybe I'm totally wrong. And Minnesota stays blue. I just think that at this point in time, Trump lost nobody. He lost nobody who voted for him last time in the upper Midwest. I think he's very few people that he's lost, and he's going to win some of those Gary Johnson votes. And as a result of that, I think he ends up squeaking it out in Minnesota.
Well, I want everyone listening to kind of sound off in the comments. Put your who you think was the closest. Do you think Isaac's right? Do you think it's going to go to Biden? Do you think Justin and I are correct? How about Jim? And tell us where you think we went wrong and what your prediction is. I do want to spend the last few minutes of this podcast talking about a thing that's kind of specific to Illinois. And I don't really know how specific to Illinois it is. We have a proposition that's up for vote that is about changing the state income tax from a flat tax where everyone's just taxed at 4.95%. Income tax to a graduated income tax, right? So this is kind of on the ballot, and I don't know what's the kind of the landscape across states across the country. How many states have a income tax period, and how many of those are graduated versus being flat? But it's a big deal here in Illinois, and recently, the Governor Pritzker, he's the one that kind of initiated this campaign to change the Constitution because it's enshrined in the Constitution that we have a flat tax, and initiate a progressive state income tax. So the messaging of this has been that the taxes will only go up in the top 3%. For the 97%, the rest of the 97%, no one's going to see a tax increase. And then, the whole idea of fair share. The rich people have to pay their fair share. So the Heartland Institute recently came out with a new report called An Economic Assessment of the Illinois Fair Tax. And this was written by a pretty highly esteemed set of authors here. We had Art Laffer, who is the father of supply-side economics, member of President Reagan's Economic Policy Advisory Board, creator of the Laffer Curve, even, I believe. Stephen Moore, Heritage Foundation economist, served as the top economic advisor for the Trump campaign in 2016. I think he still serves Trump in some capacity. And E.J. Antoni, a senior fellow at the Community to Unleash Prosperity. So they compiled info from states across the country that did the same type of thing that we're trying to do here in Illinois, and made some estimates about what this could mean. So I'm just going to run through some of these just basic bullet points, and then I'll throw it to you, Jim, for any other kind of words that you want to say about this. But so they say that if we initiate this type of plan in Illinois, it's going to crush job growth. It's going to shrink the Illinois gross state product by $20 billion over the next 10 years. And it's going to usher more and more people out of the state. But I think the two biggest findings of this report, the ones that I think like your average person should kind of keep in mind, is that it has the potential to crush small businesses. How? Well, small business owners pay tax through their personal income taxes, not through corporate tax. Studies show that more than half of taxes on those filers with incomes above $500,000 are paid by small business owners or investors. So, yeah, like the small businesses, they pay their taxes through their personal income. So if this tax goes through, it's going to be a massive tax on small businesses, which is like, one of the biggest employers in the state.
You love to see it.
Oh yeah, up there in Wisconsin.
Like, honestly, yeah. I mean, let's just flush Illinois for what it is, right? Well, like, isn't this great? Isn't this just doing what needs to get done? It's like the end of Old Yeller when the dog was locked up in the corn crib, just drooling because of the hydrophobia. And you just need to
put it out of its misery.
Do the compassionate thing, Donald.
So
that's all this is. You should have bought a house in Wisconsin. I told you this when you were looking for a house, and you really could have done your part.
That's true.
To make Wisconsin a better place and hasten the decline of Illinois.
The other thing to keep in mind, this is the other big point, is that home value appreciation would be 10% less over the decade because of decreasingly business-friendly atmosphere and increased out-migration of residents in the state. People are just not going to be buying houses in this.
Your property value is going to be falling. That was a bad investment on your part. Next.
So in addition to the Heartland Institute and this report, Illinois Policy also does a lot of work on this. They've got a number of articles. One, progressive income tax would create a north of 50% income tax rate for small businesses. And there was another article that both of these things bolster arguments that are made in the report. The other one is progressive tax could cost nearly $1,800 a year in home equity. It says if the median homeowner with a home value of $203,000 were planning on selling their house in 10 years, a progressive income tax would cost them $18,000 in foregone equity. So, Jim, anything you want to add to this? I mean, I think if you're just watching commercials that are endorsing this plan, it's just like, oh, well, rich people that have a lot of money are going to get taxed. So why wouldn't I vote for it?
Yeah, I actually think this ballot initiative is going to lose. Maybe I'm being too optimistic, but ballot initiatives are usually pretty hard to pass because the descriptions of them on the ballots is long. Nobody wants to read all that. Screw it. No, just move on to the next thing. So there's a certain percentage that will just vote no on everything. Like me, I vote no on every ballot initiative because I don't want more ballot initiatives. I want our legislature to do its job at what we send them to do. If you have a tough call, don't come to me for it. Make the tough call and then pay the consequences or reap the rewards on election day. But when we did a press conference on Zoom with Steve Moore, Art Laffer, and EJ Antoni, we got a lot of good questions, not just from the press, but from people attending. And actually, you can go to Heartland Tube, the channel Heartland Tube on YouTube. You can see that presentation for yourself from the three economists. Steve Moore actually said something pretty interesting. There was actually a little discussion. It's like, well, what if Illinois had no income had no income tax, like states like Tennessee, where Justin, you were just at, I believe, has no state income tax. Florida has no state income tax. Texas has no state income tax. People are flooding to those states. They are growing. Their economies are booming, in no small part, actually, that there's no state income tax, that they have sales taxes instead. They have other ways to raise revenue that don't just punish you for success. And that, a sales tax, for instance, is much more, equitably distributed among the population, and the rich pay more of a sales tax because they buy more, and the poor pay less in sales taxes because they buy less. And that seems like a fair way to do it. And so Steve Moore had this dream that Illinois, that he doesn't live in anymore, he had to flee that, that used to be one of the great, Chicago is one of the great cities in the world, and it happens to be in Illinois, which is one of the worst states in America when it comes to their fiscal house and regulations and taxes, and it's expensive to live here, and you don't get a lot in return for it. This is all about, Illinois. I think Illinoisans are pretty cynical about being asked yet again to chip in more, with the promise that the rich will be paying it, not you. Every small business owner knows that they are so-called rich because they have a small profit margin on the restaurant that they run. Right. They'll be socked. I mean, so I think even in Illinois, people are still a little too cynical to be asked yet again to chip in with more higher taxes when everybody knows that the problems in Illinois are spending problems, especially the public pensions. And if we give Illinois more money through this kind of a tax increase, they're never going to fix the problems that happen here. We actually need to accelerate faster to absolutely fiscal, full fiscal collapse, so that we have to make the reforms necessary on the spending side, not the revenue side.
We would cover on this podcast all the time, yearly, pretty much, the rich state state's poor states, where it kind of shows all the different factors that are going on in the state and then ranks them based on how business friendly they are, et cetera. And I remember changing, because you could go in there and change it. Like, oh, what if what if they raise taxes this amount? You can go in there and change it and see how that would affect the ranking. And I remember that Illinois was like ranked 46th, maybe 45 or something. And I went in and changed the flat tax to a progressive tax and made the higher end like 8% or whatever was being thrown around at that time. And it dropped the state from 46th place out of 50 down to 49th. It was like a pretty humongous drop, just changing that one thing. So
it'd be cool to see what would happen if you took away the state income tax altogether. I bet it would soar up the charts, because Illinois and Chicago is a great place to live. It just sucks. It sucks for the taxes.
All right. That will do it for this episode, folks. Thank you for joining us for this episode of the In the Tank podcast. If you like our show, please subscribe, write a review for us on iTunes. It'd be greatly appreciated. If you would like, you can, you can see our show on pretty much everything nowadays. I always mention that: Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, YouTube even. If you'd like, you can follow us on socialist Twitter at In the Tank Pod. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, feel free to email the show at inthetankpodcast@gmail.com. Justin, where can the fine people find you?
At Justin T. Haskins on Facebook and Twitter.
Isaac Orr, same question.
Defending the Wisconsin border from invasion.
That's where you can find him. Jim Likely, where can the fine people find you?
At Jay Lakely on Twitter, at Heartland Inst on Twitter, and always go to heartland.org.
All right. Thank you all for tuning in. We will talk to you next week.